Hi, I'm Tim. In this video, join me as I show you how you can get into flying RC model airplanes. This video will take you step by step if you've never flown before, perhaps you've been out of the hobby for several years, some of the changes. So let's get into it. My name is Tim McKay. I have this YouTube channel covering all aspects of electric model airplane flight. I've been an RC model for over 50 years in addition to a great deal of full-scale flying. I've designed numerous RC models to include on this channel, published in various magazines. I really enjoy flying RC model airplanes, but how do you get into it? There's a lot of barriers, there's a lot of things you have to know before you can get into RC flight. Fortunately, I think this is a golden age for RC flying. The equipment is very affordable, it's very reliable. Electric power has changed everything. It's just a great time to be into the RC hobby. So let's get into some specifics. As a reminder, there are chapters below in the timeline if you'd like to jump ahead to a specific section, and we'll start now. So there's a lot of things that have changed over even the past 15 years in RC model flying. How did you find out about model airplanes? You might have seen something at a trade show. You might have been a store. Maybe you saw a YouTube video. But in any event, you've seen these model airplanes fly. And I'm pretty much talking about fixed wings airplanes. I'm not talking too much about the drones here, although that is part of RC flying. And what I'd like to do is take you step by step what you need to do to become a radio control model airplane pilot. The first thing about becoming an RC model airplane pilot, there are no special requirements. The one thing I would emphasize to anybody thinking to get into this, make sure that you have a good set of glasses. You need good vision to fly these models. They could be off in the distance, fairly small. If it's been a while since you've had an eye exam, consider getting an updated eye exam. You don't want to not realize that your vision is a little bit off. It'll just make learning a lot harder. There's no barriers to entry if you have any physical disabilities. There's really no barriers to entry with age. Anybody can do it if they wish and they have a good attitude and want to put in some work. The other good thing about radio control model airplane flying, this is being filmed in April of 2022, is the maturity and level of performance of the RC electronics is just beyond compare. They are very well made. They very rarely fail because of the electronics themselves. So you have an incredibly high degree of reliability for your RC electronics. Back when I first started RC in the early 1970s, that was most certainly not the case. Many models were lost due to defective equipment, jamming, so forth. Even something as basic as jamming, where two transmitters could be on the same frequency and cancel each other out, that has been bypassed by technology, the 2.4 gigahertz radios, which I'll talk about a little bit later. In addition, in the past, you had to build your model to be able to fly. These days, there are very high quality, almost ready to fly models available from a wide range of manufacturers. I'll discuss a few of those in this video. You literally don't have to build your model. You can buy it, show up the field, and be ready to fly with a pretty good flying model. So if you're new to RC flying, you want to get into it, and I'm not getting paid anything for this video. There's no paid promotion whatsoever, but I will be endorsing a few products and services. What you have to do is join the AMA or the Academy of Model Aeronautics. I'll put the website down below here. The website for the AMA will be in the description. The AMA is a good modeling organization. They publish a monthly magazine, which I think is the best modeling magazine out there. It covers all sorts of flying, radio control, control line, free flight, but it's just a wealth of information, resources, even things as basic as flying a model airplane club field to fly at. All of that is contained within the AMA organization. But again, join the AMA. It will be a requirement for any club that you wish to join, because as part of your AVA membership, they have some insurance, which will be required for the club. And also the magazine alone is worth the price of entry. It's an excellent magazine for any aspiring RC modeler. All right, so my commercial for the AMA is over, but I do mean what I said. The next thing is you've got to find a club field. The club field is important when you're beginning RC flying because the club field will lead to a group of modelers that can be helpful, primarily for instructors for your first couple of flights. I'm going to hammer the instructor portion a fair amount because it is absolutely critical that you get off on the right foot with your flying. If you do a Google search for radio control model airplane clubs, you'll pretty quickly come upon clubs that are near you. In addition, the AMA section of their website that lists RC clubs, which is really quite comprehensive. When you go there, it'll list the club, their website, the directions, how far it is from you. It's very helpful to get knowledge of where a club is. Virtually every club has a website. Some clubs may be more active on their website than other ones. Typically, there's an email address. I have found by being members of about 10 clubs as I moved around the country in my various jobs that the president is usually fairly responsive. In the case of my club that I joined here in North Georgia, they originally capped the membership at 80 members for valid reasons. They just wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to fly. I was above the 80th person. I gave a description of who I was, what I wanted to do, and sure enough, shortly after that, they raised the membership to 100 people and I got to join the club. But that is how you find a club. And what you want to do is drive out and take a look at that club to see if it's a good fit for where you are. How good is the flying field? Is it close enough to where you live? Just the people there. I would recommend going on a weekend, either Saturday or Sunday when there's fairly good weather. Usually most people are there from about 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. around there. And just introduce yourself and say that you're a new modeler, meet the people, and most clubs that I've been in are very accepting of new people. They will chat with you, and you can start the conversation on the next steps in your RC journey, which of course is joining up with an instructor and buying the appropriate equipment. One thing I want to just get out of the way before we go into the RC equipment is the subject of toy airplanes. Toy airplanes are what I would consider just very inexpensive $40, $50, $60 airplanes. You can see them on Amazon. They're always made out of foam, various control arrangements. They're fun to have, but I would not recommend using these very inexpensive aircraft to learn how to fly. A good example, the description will be in the details of the video will be in the description, is a Duet. There's nothing wrong with this Duet. It's a nice little model. It comes ready to fly with a transmitter. It was under $100 or so. 3 channels. You have an elevator, directional control with the throttles, and then the throttle itself built into the electronic speed controller. I have no idea what's inside here. I can't open it up. I've never looked at it. It comes ready to go out of the box. It flies, but it's a kind of weird flying because you'll note there's no rudder. It does directional control with differential power. Where that gets to be a problem is when you reduce the power to idle on both engines to descend, you have no way of turning the airplane. So, and also the transmitter that comes to control this aircraft can't be bonded or used with any other RC equipment. So you've kind of spent a fair amount of money on one airplane that's not going to go anywhere else. So I think these are fun aircraft to have. There's nothing wrong with them as an addendum to your flying, but don't use these very inexpensive aircraft as a primary means of learning how to fly. Also, one other thing I'd like to discuss is, well, some people may say I'm a full-scale pilot that can help me learn how to fly RC. I'm a full-scale pilot too, everything from the Cessna 150 to the Boeing 777. And I was a flight instructor. I don't think there's really any transfer from what you do with a full-scale airplane to a model airplane. They're two very different sets of skills. Even things like orientation, when the RC model is coming towards you, the controls are reversed in terms of how you turn the aircraft. It's great being a full-scale pilot, but you're beginning at the beginning with an RC pilot. You'll still need an instructor to be a proficient model airplane radio control pilot. So I want to circle back to the club and finding an instructor. Most clubs will have experienced members that take on students to teach them how to fly. It's pretty much part of giving back, paying forward. And so once you can meet this person, it's very good to establish a relationship with them, have a conversation. They may have some good ideas on trainer aircraft that they're comfortable with. Very often a club will have a club trainer. It is a trainer owned by the membership of the club that they can use for the first few flights for new members. In that case, it can help out a lot for what you want to do to learn how to fly. So once you meet with the instructor, establish schedules, see how regularly you can meet this person for flying, it's a good idea to have a conversation on training aircraft. For your trainer aircraft, if you're a builder, you can certainly build a trainer aircraft. I have some videos in the description of pretty good trainer aircraft to consider. If not, you can buy a almost ready to fly trainer that are really quite good. I have a lot of experience with Horizon Hobby. Again, I'm not getting paid anything by them. I like the products that they sell. I like also their tech support on the phone or on chat. It's just a very easy company to work with, including the few times I've had to return items if there's some mix-up on the order. So let's take a look at the Horizon Hobby website. You'll go through some of the aircraft, and AeroScout is one we'll look at. I've seen this fly. I think it's a very reasonable trainer at a pretty good price. And also the website will tell you the additional items you'll need to include transmitters, receivers, batteries, and so forth. This is their Horizon Hobby website. They always have some sort of sale. Do sign up for their newsletter. And it's pretty well laid out. We'll take a look initially at trainer aircraft. Many of the brands like eFlight are sponsored by Horizon Hobby. Wide range of trainers. Work with your instructor in your club, what they might prefer. I like the AeroScout. I've seen it fly. We'll take a look at the little bit larger one here. Pretty reasonable price. A pusher configuration is good. You're not going to break props when you're flying it. Also, the list needed to complete, in this case, battery, charger, and transmitter. Continuing with the website, we'll go ahead and take a look at transmitters. Again, I like Spectrum. I've been using them for several years. I think they're well made. And you should probably get a minimum of a 6-channel transmitter. They go up to 20, depending how many features you want. Again, just a very high quality transmitter for RC flying. They have a list of extra things needed, such as the receivers in this case. I do want to emphasize the batteries. The lithium polymer batteries are what enabled everything for a modern brushless electric flight. The batteries are very good, very powerful, but they can be a hazard. These days, the batteries are quite safe because we have what we call balancers in the chargers for these batteries. In the old days, before balancers, people would get some very inexpensive batteries, cheap, low-quality batteries from China. There were cases of fires. That has really not occurred these days. Make sure you can get the best battery you can. I personally use Thunder Power batteries. If I was starting out from scratch and I really wanted to do it right, I would get the Spectrum Smart Charger batteries. That is a very good combination of up-to-the-date battery technology, balancers with chargers. Again, all at Horizon Hobby. One thing I mentioned earlier is the advances in technology for the RC equipment. The equipment these days is very, very well made. Any of the name brands should be good. I happen to like Spectrum. I've been using them for years. They're very well built, and what they did was in about 2005, Spectrum was the first company that came out with the new 2.4 gigahertz frequencies for transmitters and receivers. Prior to then, we had 50 channels, which are essentially frequencies between the receiver and the transmitter. The catch was if I was on channel 38, somebody else was on channel 38. When we turned on our transmitters at the same time, we'd jam each other. So there's a very careful process with frequency boards and pins to make sure that didn't happen. All this has been changed with the 2.4 gigahertz. Anybody flies whatever they want because through some electronic magic, you bind the transmitter with the receiver. So that brings up another point. Let's say you want to buy some equipment, radios, trainers, you went to a swap meet, you found a great deal. If you're on the older 72 megahertz radios, that's before the 2.4 gigahertz, I don't think it's a good idea to get that. They may work, but electronics age, that's an older radio, and you could well run into some problems just with the older radios. In addition, things that are not quite evident, this is the antenna on the DX6 transmitter that I have. It's probably about 5 years old. Notice it's a little stub antenna. The older ones have these very long antennas. They can fail. Just some of the advances. In addition, the Spectrum receivers that I use with this have no antennas, or they have an antenna, but it's built in. There's no extending wire. At the same time, you may see the swap meet a gas-powered model. Gas-powered engines used to be everything that we flew. Over the past 10 years, the adoption of brushless electric motors with lithium polymer batteries has been pretty much universal. I would say 98% of all RC models are electric powered these days. If you get a gas-powered model, the catch is you're not going to have very many people, if anybody at the field, that will be conversant in handling the model engine problems with the gas engine. That was our biggest headache back in the day, getting the gas engines to start. I really think it's worthwhile starting and continuing with electric-powered flight. Afterwards, if you really like the sound of gas engines, you want to go there, and you've learned how to fly, you can consider that at this time. But the brushless electric motors with lithium polymer batteries is what you should be using. Another thing that's happened over the past 10 years or so for learning how to fly is the existence of dedicated schools to teach RC pilots how to fly. This is a pretty neat thing. I've seen the ads, I've seen various videos on them, and when you go to the AMA website, they'll have a list of RC schools out there. The first flight RC school, I'll show a picture here of it. This is being filmed in April of 2022. They've trained over 2,000 people how to fly RC models. If you have the time, if you have the money, it is really worthwhile to consider something like this. In the case of the first RC flight school, they'll solo you in a week. And with all their experience, they provide the models, they've got a series of books on how to do this. It's an incredibly efficient way to get flying, learn how to solo, and do it correctly right out of the bat. So again, the RC schools are a great thing that you can use in your favor. So the other thing that comes up is how long does it take for me to solo? It really is hard to say. It depends on the model you're flying, how often you get out there. Anytime you're learning how to fly, if you spend a long period of time between lessons, you'll spend part of your next lesson learning what you forgot over the 2 weeks. So if you can possibly fly a couple times during a week, that will accelerate your progress. That'll be between you and the instructor. Anything you can work out to take advantage of your schedules to get the most flying in the shortest period of time will be helpful. And again, very easy to do with the electric powered models. Another thing that is very helpful for learning how to fly are computer RC model airplane simulators. There are several out there. I've been using Real Flight for a number of years. There's probably some 8-year-old kids somewhere that can learn to fly on Real Flight, to successfully fly a model airplane. I think that would be the exception rather than the rule. I highly recommend the simulators because they're great for just learning orientation, turning. You can get a surprising amount of training in the simulator, so that when you get out to the field, I think you'll advance a lot quicker in your learning of how to fly that airplane. That being said, if you take a almost ready to fly airplane out of the box, try to fly it by yourself, and no kidding, 4-channel airplane, which is rudder, elevator, ailerons, and throttle. There's just, the airplane could be slightly out of trim coming out of the box. You may lose orientation, it may fly away. It is very hard to impossible to successfully fly that airplane on your own without the instructor. Again, as I've emphasized, getting an instructor, the use of perhaps an RC flight school and simulators will all help you. Then once you've soloed, now you're on your own and you can practice from there. So let's take a look at Real Flight Flight Simulator, the one I have set up in my office, and I'll give you an example of a few of the airplanes that you can fly with the sim. So this is the Real Flight Flight Simulator. You have an interlead controller. It's just a transmitter, but they don't call it that because there's no transmitting. It just plugs into the computer. But the Real Flight Simulator is a great way for somebody new to RC to practice flying without worrying about getting to the field, crashing, things like that. It's a tremendous help for anybody wanting to fly RC, learn to fly RC, or get better at RC because you fly different airplanes and so forth. This is the Timber. It's an E-Flight product available from Horizon Hobby. It's a fun airplane to fly. It is a more advanced aircraft, but again, you can get the feel of it in the simulator. It's really, really quite accurate with how the airplane handles. This is the Spacewalker by SIG Aircraft Company. Again, a little bit larger model, but again, you can get practice with taking off. Notice most of our turns are to the left. It's surprisingly how much it can challenge you doing a right-hand pattern. And it's great to practice these in the sim just to get used to doing both left-hand and right-hand patterns. You could add any amount of wind you want into the simulator to challenge your flying skill, being able to line up and fly. Notice the Spacewalker does float a little bit like the real one, and here we have it touched down a little bit further down the field. A huge range of models include World War I biplanes. Again, these are very draggy models. They can tend to nose over, but it's a good practice to fly these different type of models. You can circle around, notice how they get a little bit smaller when they get in the distance, keeping orientation, then practicing with that model to accurately land at your field. A lot of times, well, really all the time, people ask, how much does this cost? It really depends on the training you get, the amount of equipment. I would say that if you budget $400 to buy the radio equipment and the trainer airplane, that would be a low end of it. Keep in mind, when you have your transmitter and receiver, you can use them in multiple models. Also, with the computer radios, this has a model memory. I can put 250 different models in here. I only own one transmitter, and I have about 15 RC models because I can select whichever one I want, and I just have to buy the flight packs for that. The transmitter is very important. The receiver is very important. I recommend the Spectrum receivers. They just talk to each other better. The batteries are important. You'll need servos. The servos are a commodity. There's nothing really fancy about the servos. I buy my servos on Amazon. The high-tech servos are great. HS55, HS40 for most of my smaller model flying. And again, you can swap the flight packs between airplanes or buy multiple servos and receivers, batteries, and put them into different aircraft. So thank you for joining me in this video. RC flying is great. This is a great time to enter the flying. There's a tremendous amount of information on the internet. I would recommend joining the Academy of Model Aeronautics, a wonderful magazine. Use the internet to find an RC club, join the club, hook up with an instructor, follow their recommendations for a trainer aircraft, learn how to fly with that instructor at your club field or a dedicated field, and then you're off and running with the RC hobby. Keep in mind, there's some wonderful resources with the various discussion groups. I like RC groups. That's probably the granddaddy of them all. Just about anything that you can think of, you have a question on RC flight, from plans building to plans to anything, is on RC groups. I'll put the link here in the video and in the description. So again, welcome to the world of RC model airplane flying, and I wish you the best of luck.